Hey guys, this is Colin Zhu, aka the Chef Doc, and I know it's been a minute since the last time you and I have spoken, and I want to thank you so much for following the Thrive Bites podcast. And I just want to let you know that there's good reason for that, and let me explain. In almost 6 months, I've been working tirelessly and diligently to helping people near and far during this tumultuous year that we've had from 2020 into 2021. And I said to myself, what more can I do to inspire and impact others? And you guys know me, I'm all about thriving. I'm all about thriving from an emotional, mental, and physical standpoint. That is the reason why I wrote Thrive Medicine, and that is the reason why I started this podcast called Thrive Bites. And so I decided that I wanted to put together a virtual summit experience, gathering over 50 speakers. That includes physicians, dietitians, fitness experts, coaches, and spanning over 5 pillars in teaching someone else on learning how to thrive. And I call this the Thrive Formula. The 5 pillars consist of food as medicine, functional fitness, relationships, community, and resilience. And the reason why I've chosen to do this is because I really wanted to give more tools, more education, and more inspiration, and letting people know that they're not alone and they don't have to be ill-equipped for life and whatever life throws at you, whether it's a curveball, whether it's an obstacle, whether it's a roadblock. And I worked really hard to provide this, and I'm happy to announce that it is fully released and fully accessible. And you may ask yourself, who is this for and what does it consist of? This is for the individual that prioritizes their health and wellness and also wants to take charge of their own well-being. It's also for the healthcare professional and the healthcare professional student, because I wanted to create a summit experience that I wish I could have had when I was in school. The summit experience has over 50 plus hours plus more, ranging from culinary demonstrations to fitness demonstrations to scientific medical sessions. And we answer questions like, what is whole foods plant-based cooking? How do I start cooking back in my kitchen? What affects my brain, gut, and immune health? What are the tools for my own emotional and mental well-being? How can I be more of service and lead by example? What kind of nutrition do I need to give my children nowadays? To how do I navigate self-doubt, self-sabotage, my inner critic? To what are the best physical movements to increase my mobility, strength, flexibility, and function? And one of my favorites is, how do I create more joy, contentment, and happiness in my own life? This summit also works like a masterclass series where you get to learn and further your education. And I do this by providing quizzes with every session, and I provide workbooks. And there's also recipes and very, very special speaker bonuses. You'll also have the opportunity to join a private Facebook community to further your growth and connect with like-minded individuals. So if this resonates with you, please join us on this journey to further yourself and take back 2021 and beyond. You can find us at thethriveformula.co. That's THETHR formula.co. And come on inside, and I'll see you in there. Cheers. Hey guys, welcome to Thrive Bites, the official podcast of Dr. Colin Zhu, aka the Chef Doc. On every episode, I talk with health and wellness experts from all over the world, such as doctors, chefs, dietitians, coaches, and many more. And I sit down with them and have casual conversations about plant-based lifestyle, how to elevate our emotional resilience, and what it really means to thrive. And I bring all of this to you. So let's get to this week's episode. Okay, guys, welcome to the Thrive Bites podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Colin Zhu, and thank you so much for being here with us. This is a podcast meant to give you inspiration, education, and solely focused on plant-powered living, enhancing our emotional resilience, and creating a thriving mindset. And today, we have a lovely, lovely guest for you today. His name is Sid Garza-Hillman. He is a writer, nutritionist, podcaster, and also YouTuber. And he really enjoys helping people truly take control of their lives through their unique small steps philosophy. He's the author of Approaching the Natural, a Health Manifesto, and Raising Healthy Parents, Small Steps, Less Stress, and a Thriving Family. His approach is the exact opposite of quick fixes, diets, and exercise DVDs, focusing rather on long-term sustainable change and increased self-esteem and confidence in the process. So he is also he graduated from UCLA, a public speaker, host of What Sid Thinks Podcast, certified nutritionist, and running coach. Super stoked about that, and founder of smallsteppers.com. So without further ado, please welcome Sid. Hello.
Hey, Colin. How's it going? Nice to meet you.
Good, good. Thank you so much for taking the time out to be with us on the show.
Of course. I'm super happy to be here.
Small question, would be, what is one thing that people don't know about you? In this, we all of us, that come into the health and wellness, a lot of us are just really immense into our world, and we just sleep, breathe, and all the good jazz that comes with it. But what is something that people don't know about you? Let's start off with with that question.
Yeah, well, you said jazz, and so therefore, some people know, but maybe people don't know that I used to be a full-time touring musician that put out albums and toured around, and actor. And I made my living as an actor for 10 years in Los Angeles. I was in movies and TV and commercials and things like that. So I'm deep, like you said, we're all immersed in this world, but I still have that background and still play music and still write to this day. So, and that kind of folds into my overall approach. So it works seamlessly in that regard.
That's awesome. Well, that's awesome. I mean, you don't hear too many people that have, that come from almost like an opposite lifestyle or opposite career, and to really get immersed into the wellness world, Right. So, okay, great. Well, let's start off the first initial question I love asking my guests is, I love hearing about people's stories, and it's really about the core message and where they have come from point A to point B, and all the different steps that led them from those two trajectories. So, for yourself, how did you get to this point? How did you arrive to where you are today, where you said to yourself, you know what, I want to wake up every single day, just really giving it my all, especially in a time like this, where things are, just uncertain and very unpredictable nowadays. So can you share with the audience a little bit about how you got from point A to point B?
Sure. Yeah. And while music and acting seem to be completely opposite of what I do now, the interesting thing is that it started me on my trek was when I was a full-time musician, but lifetime asthmatic, and was given a book that made a correlation, if not causal relationship between dairy and asthma. I thought I was 22 or 3 years old. I said, well, I'll give it up and see what happens. My asthma went away. So I was able to, obviously as a singer-songwriter, I'm like, that's pretty dang cool to be able to not have asthma and sing. So interestingly, that affected my career at the time, my passion at the time, which is music, still is on some level, but mostly focused obviously now on wellness. But so cut to 10 years later, I'm playing music and I'm touring and acting and everything, but I'm reading nutrition book after nutrition book after nutrition book. Finally in Los Angeles kind of exhausted me and my wife, and we had a child, and we're like, it's time, we got to get out of here. So we moved up to where I live now, the Mendocino Coast. And I realized I have a passion for this. This is something I am super interested in. I love talking about it. And so I went back to school years later and became a certified nutritionist. Then, this is the full Cliff Notes version, working as a nutritionist within months. I was like, this is insane. I'm giving people really good advice. They're not following it. They're following it for a while and seeing results even, but not sticking with it. That was the nut I had to crack. I said, this is ridiculous. If I'm into this and I'm passionate, what I'm really passionate about is helping people create long-term change. Nobody wants to just, get healthier for a little bit and then lose everything they've gained. So I took a few steps back, really applied my philosophy degree that I got from UCLA and said, okay, what's at stake here? Is this about knowing about diet or how much of that is about knowing about it or how to implement that knowledge. And I realized that it's almost entirely about how to implement the knowledge. So that was the inspiration of my first book, my first podcast, Approaching the Natural Podcast, my small steps, my program now, my coaching and my online, and my new book, Six Truths. It's all that philosophy of how to help people actually create long-term change around this. How do you use the knowledge and still live a life in the modern world? So that's a total like Cliff Notes version, but that's where it's at.
Yeah, that's awesome. Because it's when you sometimes look back at your own life and you jot notes down, you make mental reflections, you sometimes wonder, how did I even get here? And point A and point B, the shortest distance is a straight line. However, it's almost never that. And it's always, just a squiggly line. It's, just following the ridge of this mountainous, range and there's ups and downs and, hills and valleys and peaks. And you're just saying to yourself, wow, I'm very impressed with what I've done, depending on your perspective. Yeah. So let's go back a little bit, about the asthma. What was going on during that time that you couldn't really have a handle of it? And then you said to yourself, like, what was the spark that said, like, hey, I wanted to do something different with it?
Well, it was, I don't remember. I was, you live so long with something. I just had asthma. I had an inhaler, and I was a recreational runner, go for a couple miles, have an inhaler, because I'd have the exercise induced and regular, just asthma, and it's just what it was. I looked back. I saw a picture recently of my college dorm room. There's my inhaler right by my bed. It becomes normal, right? But I was working for an actor at the time as a personal assistant, and he and his wife were the one who gave me this book called Fit for Life. And I just was like, oh, okay, what's this? It was just like I wasn't even that curious about nutrition. I was just a rock musician, and so I'm just looking at it. And so it sort of created that connection of making me realize that on some level, I did want to get rid of the asthma and that it was possible. And up until that time, I just figured that's what I do. I'm a guy with asthma, And so when I saw that book, it was like, oh, wait a second. Is this can't be possible. It cannot be this easy, right? And so then I was like, it didn't cost me much to just make that change to try it out. I was like, there's no big investment here. I don't have to go away. I don't have to spend a bunch of money. I just stop eating something to see what that looks like. And it changed. And so in a way, that little act opened up an entire huge possibility of what else can be done in this regard. And that's when I just started diving into book after book after book for like 15 years, literally just one after the other, just reading and soaking it all up. And I love the idea that, it's like treating yourself well is an ethic to me that applies to everything that you do, whether you're a musician, a lawyer, doctor, whatever. If you treat yourself well, you do that better. I mean, my second book, Raising Healthy Parents, is about taking care of yourself as a parent. That it's that backdrop that leads people to a happy life in whatever they decide to do and how they want to do it. It was pretty eye opening.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, that's awesome. What was the lifestyle that you were leading up until you read that book? Was it the environment that you're in? Was it, what kind of foods were you, taking in, that really caused you to say, like, you know what, I've been trying this. I've been on my maintenance inhalers for so long. I just really am tired of using these things. And, there's something about that book, or the subsequent changes that, came afterwards. Like, what was the actual, I guess, the needle in the haystack?
I think it was eating the way that probably most 22-year-olds, who have no knowledge of nutrition eat, a little bit of fast food here and there. But the thing about it is I graduated from UCLA and I was pursuing music, obviously. And so I took the first and easiest job I could find, which was to work at UCLA in the audiovisual department, which was full of all like artists, writers, actors, all people who just wanted the easiest job with health insurance that could allow them to pursue their art. So that was pretty great, but no money, right? So I'm eating like white rice and like I'd boil like potatoes and bring those to work and then get mustard from the on-campus restaurant and just like dip my potatoes in like I was literally eating like the cheapest stuff, and it wasn't horrible, but I was eating dairy. And I'd make these like white flour tortilla tuna with cheddar cheese kinds of things, just like the cheapest stuff I could get through. So that was pretty what it was. And when I read Fit for Life, it wasn't even a plant-based book per se, but it definitely talked about the value of nutrition and where to find what nutrition is, how it looks, where to look for it kind of thing. And that changed the way that I ate most days, just like I eat 100% healthy. I still don't, but it did start to make me think about it. And it's pretty great. I mean, as a parent now raising kids, it's like setting them on the trajectory of at least knowing how to eat well, means when they're on their own, they may not eat well, but they always know where to get to if they start to feel not so good, and I just realized like, I want to feel good. I want to feel good. if I'm playing on stage in Germany, I don't want to have a stomachache, and I remember I remember being in high school and like, we'd go to a party and cheese pizza and I'd have a stomachache. I never really make the connection, but I always had like an ear infection I wasn't sick all the time, but it was like discomfort. I had discomfort, and it was really nice to feel better and not know that I hadn't been feeling that well for so long, and I think that happens. People like, they just go, I feel fine. But then when they start to feel actually better, they're like, oh my gosh, I wasn't feeling fine for years, and then they start feeling good and they're like, oh my God, that's amazing. So
And I think it's based off of those feelings, or, we call them symptoms. You say to yourself like, wow, I don't want to go back to those anymore. And, I didn't know I could actually feel like this. And it, sometimes it becomes a normal for some people, and they think that, oh, that's all there is.
That's right.
And then when something changes, you're like, wow, I didn't know that this could happen. What more can I do? What was the little thing or the big thing that led me to this, and let me do more of that. So, so when you continued on your, music career, and which is awesome, by the way, being able to tour. And was it like were you part of a band, or what describe that?
Yeah, it was called the Sid Hillman Quartet. So it was my band. I had great musicians. I consider myself an effective leader because I found people who did things better than I could do, and I would, and it was pretty great. Like, I didn't try to play all the instruments. I just found like the best guitar player I could find, the best. Right. And so we were together, and we did about, I think, 5 albums, and Sid Hillman Quartet. It was like an alternative rock with a little bit of Western feel, and we toured and charted on college radio, and it was fun. We were very indie band, and I just absolutely I look back at those times, and with it was incredible. It was an incredible time, and so that was what we did.
Yeah. And to be able to, have something about your health, that would inhibit those passions, I would imagine that could be very challenging and very frustrating, especially for, audiences, that are more, cooped up or whatever have you, they just want to continue to live life as much as possible. Right. And then when you have something about your health, which is common, for us, for all of our, humans across the globe, I feel like, the pandemic, unfortunately, has kind of been the common thread to unite humanity. Right. Mm-hmm. And then you realize like, wow, physically, emotionally, mentally, I need to get myself in check. It's kind of like, I've never, I've been putting off, the oil change. I've been putting off the maintenance, for my car. I got to bring that girl in, what I'm saying? So it's the same thing with, our bodies. I tell, my patients all the time that if you imagine your physical bodies like a car, and you only had one car, then, you would be more apt to say like, well, let me take better care of this so we can, prevent the rust that's coming down, the line. Yeah. So,
yeah. Well, it's interesting with my clients. It's definitely that. I always say, the addictive kinds of things, the less than healthy things we go to for pleasure, if we don't pay attention to our health, like you said, the maintenance of it will eventually force us to pay attention. And when it does, it's a very huge time and energy suck. When you don't feel well and you're having to maintain like the best you can with drugs or, Tylenol or something, it does affect the way you think and the way you feel. And it's an energy suck. So for me, it's like to head that off by doing a little bit more each day means that you don't have to be so distracted by not feeling well. It's a very liberating way to approach your life, is to just do basic self-care, to understand what that's like, to understand how to eat well and move well and socialize and all the things I talk about. To raise that level of health each day actually frees time and definitely frees mental energy and establishes even greater energy for you to do the things that you love. So to me, it's like the backdrop to, it's like the thing to try to establish.
Hey guys, we're going to be taking a short break, but don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Hey guys, this is Colin Zhu, aka The Chef Doc, and thank you so much for taking the time out to listen to my podcast. On my podcast, we talk about eating and cooking and living from a whole foods, plant-based approach. And between my patients, clients, and my audience listeners, I get a lot of questions of, hey doc, how do I get started on how to set up a kitchen? Or what should I buy? What should I make? Is there something beyond a salad, broccoli, and a smoothie? I know in our fast-paced life and during a pandemic, it is much more challenging to be able to teach yourself and learning how to cook. And so I partner up with Listenable, who is a leader in audio educational courses that are bite-sized. And I went ahead and created a course on how to get started on a whole foods plant-based lifestyle. And in this course, I put in my best tips, tools, and tricks on everything that I've learned on how to get someone started, to eating more plants, getting healthier for you and your family. I talk about how to set up your kitchen, from the pantry to the fridge to the freezer, to how to navigate the supermarket, to what kind of utensils and appliances one needs to have, to what do we need to make, how to meal prep, what kind of cooking techniques there are, and what exactly is whole foods plant-based. And I'm able to make this course over 10 lessons. Each of those lessons are less than 10 minutes long. And you'll be able to finish this in an hour. You could even do it while commuting, exercising, or even walking your dog. And in addition, you can choose from over 3,000 plus original audio lessons created by well-loved experts. Just use the coupon code COLINZHU, COLINZHU, on listenable.io, and you'll be able to get 30% off a year of Listenable. So definitely check that out in the show notes, and check out the course on how to get started on a whole foods plant-based lifestyle. And I'll see you there. Thanks for listening, and now back to Thrive Bites. Welcome back to Thrive Bites. Let's get back to the interview.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that, for us here, we focus a lot on having a positive mindset. And it's kind of like the captain of the boat. You're going to have the best, ship, best infrastructure. You're going to have the best people that, crew that's, working with you. But if you don't have that, right mindset, you're really going to be steering off course. In this case, it's different because, we're talking about a system, we're talking about a process, we're talking about behavior change, right? Mm-hmm. And no matter you're trying to outfit yourself with the best, quote unquote lifestyle, I really reluctant to use the word, a diet, because we want to make sustainable changes, right? Mm-hmm. So, and also in terms of fitness and et cetera, it's really about looking about, what have I done in terms of my lifestyle, in terms of my routine, my day-to-day, even my thought patterns, right? And then also reflexively, our environment. I would say to a patient, you know what, Mr. Smith, here are the steps to quit smoking. However, if you go back to your friends, your circle of friends that are, all smoking, your probability of being able to quit, is really, really low. So my question to you, let's get into the nitty gritty of it is what is small steps, right? You created this program called, Small Steppers, right? And, it seems like that was, your first, baby, your foundation,
That's
so
right.
to speak. Describe to us what that is, and how has that made your life, more fulfilling, more sustainable, and how have you helped others with it?
Cool. Yeah. I'll skip to the second part, which has made my life more sustainable and happy because I'm actually making inroads with clients and helping them create long-term change. So it's satisfying on that level of, where nutrition was just simply wasn't, giving somebody straight up diet to eat and to eat this thing at this time and have them not stick with it was not fulfilling, and I thought, well, how can I, again, crack that nut? Well, I did. I cracked the nut. My small steps approach is is very unique. My core strategy is called awareness-based habit change. So what it does with my certain tools and mechanisms, it empowers the client to be involved in his or her own process such that they learn to manage their stress around anything new that they take on. So in other words, if they want to eat better, they manage their stress around that transition so that they don't take on too much and burn out, which is typically what happens with diets. They go all in because they don't have the awareness about it. So they follow that thing, that diet and the day 22 and all this kinds of things. And they get the gains, but then they lose them almost 100% of times. Whereas awareness-based habit change says, okay, I'm going to create small steps And what those small steps are particular to the person. So I don't have like every small step is 2 minutes of running, or movement or whatever. I always have the clients ask themselves this question: what could I do starting today that I could just do forever? I may not, but I could. It's so easy. That changes per person. Some people maybe they're a fitness level such that they could do a mile walk per day. That's their small step. Whereas another client, and I've actually had this happen, is 1 minute walking around their living room, because for them, they have done 0 and they're not feeling well and they've done no movement. So 1 minute gets them going. So this begins the process where they get up, they do the action, they start to accomplish things. I work with them obviously to make sure that they're not worried about heart rate. We're not there yet. We're trying to establish the habit of moving your body every day. They start to identify, I'm just somebody who moves my body every day, and they're not stressed out by it, so they're not burning out. When they're ready, they up that 1 minute to 2 minutes, or 1 minute to 10 minutes, whatever. We always play with that, pushing just in that adaptive stress realm so that they're not overwhelming themselves or not doing too little as well. So the small step is the size of the small step is simply what keeps you moving, not burning out, and not doing too little. And that changes because life changes. They get a new job, they have a baby, they have to move. So maybe a step that was working for them in the context of their life, they have to decrease for a short time because things in the world changed for them. And then they bring it back up when things normalize, et cetera, et cetera. But they're in charge. So as a coach, I'm not saying you're going to start with this much food and this. I'm saying, what can you do? I'll educate them. I'm a nutritionist and I'm a running fitness coach, but here's what you know, but what are you able to do starting today, given what's going on with your life, that's not going to burn you out? And then they learn the tools to engage with that process forever. I want them never to need me again. That's always my goal. It's like, finish with me and never need me. You know the system. You've gotten comfortable with how to check in with your own stress to know when you're heading toward burnout. Most of my clients are like overwhelmed already. They have a history of yo-yo dieting and or fitness plans that they've made gains, lost gains, made gains, lost gains. So we're done with that, and we start to be engaged in. They start to learn to be engaged in their own process. Yeah, you actually, you actually answered my question was, which types of people would actually come to you in terms of clients, and it seems like would it be like people who would be like last resort, or they've been to like every doctor per se? Yes, they're so over it. My best client, I always joke, my best clients just like, I'm so done. I'm so done. Like, I don't work with 20-year-olds. I'll tell you right now, like, I've worked with a couple, and they're always like, they conceptually understand my process, but they're always looking over their shoulder like at the flashy thing because their friend is doing the thing and their friend is making all these great fast physical results. And I go, yes, but they're not set up to keep those results. So it's always a challenge to say, what are your goals? What do you really want? Do you just want to lose weight and gain it back? Okay, then definitely do the diet. I'm not your guy. But if you want to keep it off, it's going to take time. You can't hack that. You can't do a before and after photo in People magazine. This is doing the real work of living a good life. This is establishing habits day to day that are just, and sticking with them long enough where they're just what you do. You're just somebody who eats healthy, somebody who moves his or her body, just what it is. And that takes time. But man, it's my challenge is that I'm against the flashy marketing of out there in the marketplace where people were like, that looks amazing. And my person at work, they lost 10 pounds in 20 days. I go, I know, but did they keep it off? And are they going to keep it off? And is that all they want, weight loss, or do they want health and vibrancy? What are your real goals? The beginning of my process with anybody in my online program or private coaching, we don't even do act 1 in the world. We go establish your goals. Find out what you really want. I've never had a client go, I just want to gain weight. I just want to lose weight and gain it back. Not one. They always say, I want to be a healthy person. Okay, now we're talking. Now, what is it going to take? It's going to take hard work. Great. Hard work because you earn it and it feels amazing, right? But you got to get them to that point so they're not distracted. Yeah, I think, that is kind of tough because I also, in addition to being a physician, I also got certified as coaching as well. And it's a completely separate process than, what we were trained in school. And, it's, you kind of look at it as if, it's almost not meant for everyone. Because, it's really about the mindset of how they come into it, right? That's right. So you were talking about being distracted and the shiny object, right? So it would actually be more of an uphill battle to really coach those people because you're trying to, deter them from the shiny object. You want people that are really, really invested in their health. You know what I'm saying? So I always love this quote about, the ounce of prevention will definitely save you like an ER visit. You know what I'm saying? Totally. So, but unfortunately, it's really about
when people, get to that, deathbed, they're like, oh my God, I gotta, make this change. So
yeah. Well, luckily I don't have a lot of people who have just had a heart attack, although those people are willing to do anything, and they'll usually do it long enough because they've been scared enough, which is horrible. But I'm telling you, people who have heart attacks are like, thank God. Sometimes you hear that they're like, really glad I had cancer because it woke me up. Right. So I'm trying to, in a sense, have people wake up to their lives, head off any kinds of things that happen, before those things happen, and to take charge and take control where they can control. Even clients that come to me that are ripe for they're ready. I have a screening process. Like, I just want to make sure, because otherwise it's just a nightmare. So I always I want to assess your pain. If you are over it and never want to do another diet again, I'm your guy. Let's get some hard work done. Right. But even those people, in the process of working with them, it's not like they're not distracted by that stuff. So it's an ongoing conversation of, they're feeling like discouraged. I know if I was doing a diet right now, I'd be losing weight. I go, okay, who are you? What are your goals? Because you told me you wanted to keep the weight off. So in that case, you are doing the work. It's happening as fast as possible when the it is clearly defined, which is healthy, sustained health and weight loss as a side effect of health, like being healthy. Okay. And I always bring them back to their goals. Remember your goals, remember your goals, remember your goals, because they live in a world. So they have friends who they're seeing make all these things, and it's it's a natural, and they're looking like maybe that way. And I go, well, okay. So it is hard work. There's no getting around it. Go ahead.
Do you find people that are, just not really focused on their goals, or they haven't even actually spent the time to actually write it down, even just a 5-minute exercise, or maybe 10 minutes, whatever have you, of actually jotting down, what are my goals? What am I aiming for? And why am I actually doing this? Do you find that people don't actually take the time to think about that as a first step?
Almost 100% of every client I've ever worked with has never actually asked the questions of what does their ideal life look like. That is the very first exercise I do out of the chute, whether it's in my online program or private coaching. Mm-hmm. I call it the ideal idea, and it is written down. And the question, the framework of it is: imagine you have a shroud over your face. You can't see what you're actually doing, but somebody walks by and says, "Hey, Colin, you are living your ideal life. I mean, you are doing exactly what you want to do every day, and you're doing it in the way you want to do it. What does that look like?" And they write it down in present tense. And they might be morbidly obese, but maybe in that ideal idea, they write down, "I'm at a healthy weight. I have a healthy relationship with food. If I eat something less than healthy, I don't beat myself up about it. I move my body. I socialize with my friends. I travel 6 months out of the year. I live in, Michigan." Whatever their ideal, boom, 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 boom. And they write it down. And they sort of go like, "Oh yeah, okay, I can do that." But it takes time because they're 50 and they've never asked that question ever. Right. Mm-hmm. And we've come to define ourselves. I'm just somebody who binges. Okay. But yet when you write that ideal idea, you're not somebody who binges, are you? So maybe you've been behaving in a way that isn't true to you. So let's get you out into the world a little bit more. And that's going to take some time. So 100% of people they've never asked that question.
It's almost like writing your own personal mission statement, right? Totally. And then when you come up to, as we said, even yourself and everyone that, probably can relate to listening to this, is that, life happens, your life shifts, your own personal life, the environment, the world shifts, and you have to, it kind of tests 2020 really tested, our resilience and the ability to be able to pivot. So it's almost like, wow, I've never actually, thought about my own goals, or they've been so, immersed into taking care of kids, for example, or taking care of someone else that they've never actually really, sat down with themselves.
That's right. Yeah. And when they do, amazing stuff happens. They look and they start to look at their current actions as not, I'm a bad person, but as I'm in conflict with how I'm acting in the world is in conflict with who I truly am. They start to really understand who they really are. I had to eat a lot of crow on this one myself as a father, walking in the door, irritable, from work, on my cell phone, and not being with my wife and kids. And I began to really look at it and say, okay, am I a bad father? Or am I not acting the way that I know that I want to be as a father? Okay, well, if I'm ideally the guy who walks in the door, puts his cell phone down, and is with his family, that's who I am ideally, then it's simply that I'm acting in conflict with that guy. How do I resolve that? Well, then I started to be able to tackle the problem instead of beating myself up. I started to look and say, okay, no news on the way home. Listen to music, maybe breathe. I did actually some deep breathing. I would park my car and I would take some breaths in my car. My wife, first couple nights, she works out of the house. She's a graphic designer. She'd look out the window and she'd go, "What are you doing?" I'd be like, "I'm taking some deep breath," and just centering myself, then getting out of the car, walking in more in line with who I am. Not 100% of times, but more often than not. And that's the change that I'm trying to get people away from this beating myself up thing, and really let's get you emerged into the world. And that's why the self-esteem and self-confidence is part and parcel to this process.
So it sounds like something that is more, intentional, just, even with the thoughts and even with the actions and routines that, you'll go about your day to day, and asking yourself, what has maybe added value or what has not added value to my life, actions and thoughts included. And what can we do about it? I just watched this, great show on Netflix, and it was talking about minimalism, and they were talking about, what kind of stuff, tangible and intangible. They were talking more about tangible stuff that doesn't really add value. So
that's right.
It's a great question to constantly ask yourself. So, it sounds like, this, your system, your philosophy is really about, from the get, what are we focused on?
That's
what
right.
are the goals? So
that's right.
Continuingly, in terms of the processes, do you do anything about, with their environment? Is there something with accountability with, their significant others and partners, or is it just a very individualized, let me just focus on you first?
Well, it's both. And I always hate that answer, both. But anyway, it's true. So it's fully about them. I mean, fully about them. Sometimes I have people and they go, "My husband's not falling." Not about him. If he wants to do a thing with him, fine. But I do have them enroll family members, especially in the food. So my small steps approach is an approach. It has nothing particularly to do about diet, but obviously it can be applied to how you eat. So let's just use food as an example. So somebody goes, "I want to eat better." Well, we all know that we have tradition around food and ritual and all these things we've been doing for years. And we have good nostalgia around food, right? So we want to make these changes. Well, it's hard to do that in the context of a family that eats a certain way too. And I don't want people to force change on family, because then it creates a whole bunch of upset. So there is a bit of a transition, but I have, people ask for help, in other words, and to acknowledge that that's a place of strength, to say, you know what, I do it still. And I've been doing my small steps approach longer than anybody. But 2 weeks ago, I told my wife, I was like, "Listen, I don't want to eat dessert this week. Can you help me?" I asked for help, and she doesn't, if I go for the dessert, she doesn't say, "Don't eat it." She says, and this is part of my training, she says, "You told me you didn't want to eat it." That's all she says. No judgment from her. You told me you didn't want to eat it. What that does is it gives me a moment of pause, a little bit of awareness, to say, okay, in that moment, do I want this or do I not? And usually that's just enough for me to go "You know what I did? I said I didn't want to do it," and I walk away. And again, I don't win every battle like that. Nobody does. But you start to get, it's the awareness that you get that starts to make you win more battles than lose. And so it's an enrollment. I mean, I have clients who have their kids help them. "Mommy, don't, that you told me you didn't want it. You didn't want that." And it's because it's we turn ourselves off around it. Food's a drug, let's face it, right? Some of this junk food is a drug, literally a drug. And so we're not in the best sound mind, sound body place when we're reaching for a Twinkie. It's a hit, right? And so to be able to not take that away from somebody, but to infuse a little bit of awareness, makes them able to make a choice around that in the moment. And that, to me, is the place to be, because they don't get militant around food. They just start to make food more of a choice, more of an action rather than a reaction. And then they can sometimes decide to eat the junk food, but it's a choice. They don't beat themselves up over it. And sometimes they choose not to, but they're in charge. And that, to me, is the ultimate level of success.
Hey guys, we're going to be taking a short break, but don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Hey guys, this is Dr. Colin Zhu, aka The Chef Doc. I just want to take a few moments of your time to talk to you about something that I feel needs to give reflection and pause for. Is there something interfering with your happiness or is preventing you from achieving your goals? I know for me, I've been on the self-work journey for a decade now, and I remember in my personal experiences, through my doctor's journeys and also from traveling the world, I was always searching for the next step, or thinking that happiness was a destination. However, it's not. What I found instead was that life was a process. And learning about life was also a process and a practice. And that the state of happiness and the state of joy and contentment was also a practice. For those of you who don't know, since I don't share that much on my podcast, is that I actually battle with anxiety, OCD, and in the past, episodes of depression. However, little by little, step by step, after seeking extra help, I've been able to achieve monumental things in my life that I've been eternally grateful for. BetterHelp will assess your needs and match you with your own licensed professional therapist. BetterHelp is a sponsor of this podcast. It's not a crisis line. It's not self-help. It is professional counseling done securely online. There is a broad range of expertise in BetterHelp's counselor network, which may not be locally available in many areas. The service is available for clients worldwide. You can log into your account anytime and send a message to your counselor. You'll get timely and thoughtful responses, plus you can schedule weekly video or phone sessions, so you won't ever have to sit in an uncomfortable waiting room, as with traditional therapy. BetterHelp is committed to facilitating great therapeutic matches so they can make it easy and free to change counselors if needed. It's more affordable than traditional offline counseling, and financial aid is available. BetterHelp wants you to start living a happier life today. A couple of reviews. This is by Rebecca Raymer. Becky has literally saved my life by truly understanding me. She has given me self-talk strategies and different thought pattern exercises that have made me stronger and a more aware person. I am so grateful to have found her. I've been to so many different therapists and none have helped me like Becky has. This is another review for Adam Johnson. I've had counselors before, both on BetterHelp and in person through work. And Adam, by far, is the best counselor I've ever talked with. I feel like he actually listens to and what is going on. He asks questions to help you navigate your thoughts. And you can tell that he is listening and wants you to help you. Visit betterhelp.com/thechefdoc, that's better HELP, and join the over 1.4 million people taking charge of their mental state with the help of an experienced professional. Special offer for ThriveBite listeners. Get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/thechefdoc. THECHEFDOC. Thank you for listening, guys, and back to the episode.
Welcome back to Thrive Bites. Let's get back to the interview.
Yeah, I love it. Especially, so much of society, media, advertisements is really centered around self-esteem, self-worth, and that external validation, right? That, whether I get this new car or a different relationship or, all these different gadgets and products that we're so inundated with that, it would somehow make my life better. Right. And, I love the fact that, you have also utilized their immediate environment. It's not just about them. You focus on them, get them going, and then say like, hey, if this happens, here are the steps and systems to, counter that. Right.
That's
because, you can't really, it's hard to, evaluate every single variable, but, you have, you can put into them, instill into them saying like, hey, if this happens, here's what you do, because it gives them a sense of like, okay, I can do this, I can, Sid told me this, and I can, pursue further.
Yeah, that's right. And every step on the list, I have people maintain a steps list. But anyways, every step on the list is an action. It's not I'm going to stop eating junk food, because I always say my saying is health and happiness don't like a vacuum. If you go, I don't want to beat myself up. Well, what are you going to think about instead? I don't want to eat junk food. Well, what are you going to eat instead? I don't want to sit on the couch. What are you going to do instead? So the actions on the steps list that are created so small that you can do them every day create that self-esteem, because they're actions. If you go, I don't want to, I'm so lazy, but you've been moving around 1 minute every day, you have an immediate response, which is, yeah, but I'm doing something about it. I'm getting up and it's small, but I'm doing something about it. I have the worst diet, but I'm eating one apple every morning. That's my step, right? But I'm making changes, and it just starts to kind of calm things down. The mind chatter starts to quiet. You have an answer for it. And then that feeds greater success over time. So yeah, you're just trying to, we're all in this together. And I always am very clear with my clients, like the struggles that I still have. And again, I've been doing this longer. It takes struggle to live well in the modern world. One of my truths in my new book, 6 Truths, is there is no substitute for hard work, and there never will be. It takes hard work. It takes hard work to raise children. It takes hard work to maintain a successful marriage, just like it also takes hard work to maintain health and happiness on any level in this world. It just takes time. If you want to do it without work, you're going to take a drug of some sort. You're going to deaden with alcohol.
Shortcut.
Yeah, you're going to if you want that level of happiness with no work associated, it's going to be a drug. It's going to be McDonald's every day, and it's going to be beer at night and whatever else. Those things are fun on occasion for some people, but not day to day. The happiness is in the hard work of being used to just being attentive to your life, paying attention to your life. I had a client, she was like, I was doing so great. And then I had a baby. And next thing I know, she goes, 3 years go by and I'll wake up, she just went through the motions for 3 years. Her health went down. She just was so bit like 3 years we can turn ourselves off. That's tragic, right? It's not, but it's okay too, because we have time. So she was like, woke up and said, I got to do this real. I got to do this for real. Like 3 years, time passes quickly, right? So if we shut ourselves off to our lives and distract ourselves with social media and all this sort of stuff, all of a sudden we wake up 6 months later and we haven't taken care of ourselves.
Yeah.
We didn't even know it.
With that particular case example, if you don't mind sharing, like what happened? Did she fall into depression, or, typically a lot of mothers, go through like postpartum blues and things like that. Did something happen to her?
It wasn't specific to postpartum. It was, I think, more of just getting, if you don't have a child and then you have a child, it's a whole nother level of busy, right? I have twins. So for 4 years, I don't even know how I stood up, with twins or whatever. But with her, I think it was like, busy, work, busy, family, busy. And all of a sudden,
stopping,
you don't stop. You don't stop. And then you're trying to do the best you can, of course. And as parents, the one mistake that we make is to put ourselves on the back burner because we got to take care of the kids. And look, it sounds weird, but if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of your kids as well. And that's the sell I try to make, is you can't afford in marriage. I take care of myself to make myself feel better. And one of my specific goals in that is to be a good father as a result of me taking care of myself, and be a good husband. My wife and I take care of ourselves separately. That's a value of self-care individually, selfishly, so that when we come to the marriage, we're not bringing a bunch of, dealing with our crap. We're handling ourselves the best we can, because it makes the marriage better and the family better. So I advocate, in my first book, I called it holistic self-interest, which is taking care of yourself, knowing that you're part of a bigger whole, whether that's family, society, whatever that is. But it is about self-interest. You cannot put yourself in the back burner and live a good life. You can't do it. You've got to take some measure of self-care to be the person that you want to be. And that ultimately is the struggle. And so fine.
Yeah. I also, I'm a big believer in that. On this podcast, we talk a lot about leading by example.
That's right.
Actually practicing what you preach. And, it is, and also one of my favorite analogies is the airplane security protocol, where the oxygen mask comes down and says, you got to put this on yourself. And so I really love the message that you're putting in, saying that, you really do got to take care of it. And also emphasize that, you probably get this a lot. I don't know if you do, but self-care is not selfish. You know what I'm saying? And it's filling your own cup to be able to give back and to be able to cater towards others, like you said.
Absolutely. I mean, my first truth of my 6 Truths book is living the example. It is, I call it selfish because I sort of take on that idea of like selflessness. It's like, no, let's do it better. So like non-thought selfishness is greed, right? You have that desire to somehow, some back of your mind is like, I want to live a good life. And so, but if you don't apply thought to it, it's like, I just want to be greedy and I don't care about anybody else. And I'm just going to accumulate as much as I can. But a little philosophy, a little ethics, a little awareness infused, selfishness takes on a new, broader role, which is self-care, so that I can also take care of others and I can be part of this whole and I can do my job better and be a better example. Yeah. And so it's like taking that on more, like be more selfish, do the best version of selfish that you can find out. Because if you actually do that, you'll realize that the money and the material stuff, if you're trying to accumulate, never makes people happy. We know it. It's a thoughtless kind of action where if you put a little thought into it, you're going to take care in a way that is good for everybody, including the world, right? It's like you're going to make the world a better place by doing that. And that's pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely. So let's transition to your book. You wrote a first book, and we didn't have time to go into the first one. But what was the impetus? What was the spark of saying, like, you know what, let me go from 1 to 2 and say, like, you know what, let me focus on this. So what is the whole idea behind the second book that you have?
Well, the second book is Raising Healthy Parents, Small Steps, Less Stress. That's the family book. And that's, again, bringing my small steps approach into the family dynamic. My third book is this one, is just came out. And that's called, that's called 6 Truths. Live by these truths and be happy, don't, and you won't. So this is like a philosophy of happiness. This is my happiness manifesto. And the reason why I put it out and wrote it, and I didn't put it out, the publisher did, but the reason I wrote it is because I wanted to have a voice in the world in a way of wellness, but to remind people really what's at stake here, so that it's never about a scale weight. It's never about a per minute mile. It's never about anything that occurs on social media. It is that we are trying to live, and this is, I don't care what color you are, religion you are, where you live, it doesn't matter. We're trying to live happy, fulfilled lives. Whatever that means for you, fine, but you're trying to get there. And to remember that does affect how you try to achieve it. To remember that it's about happiness means that you're not going to go to a diet because it won't make you happy to do that. It's going to be a way that you're going to go into it to make, if you remember happiness is your backdrop and taking care of yourself is your backdrop, it's totally going to influence in the way that you approach everything that you do in your life, including your work. Mm-hmm. And so that was the philosophy that was the impetus of that book. People were like, whoa, you took a turn. I was like, yeah, because it was Approaching the Natural is my small steps approach with regard to health. It's called the Health Manifesto, right? That's what that is. And then Raising Healthy Parents was, again, sort of in that. And this was purely like, there's no diet in 6 Truths. It's a philosophy of happiness book. It's an ethics book. It's a, little handbook of fun. It's chopped up and really easy to read for people just to have. I try to be funny, whether I succeeded or not, I have no idea. But that's the idea, kind of edgy and just like, whoa, can I just pop this in? And I've really gotten good response so far. People who are looking for this kind of license to go like that. Yeah, that is what I want. I want to be happy, and that's okay. Not only okay, but it's absolutely true for everybody in whatever form. And can we do that better? And so it's been a pretty fun ride.
Awesome. And we'll definitely share, all that, in the show notes, cool. For everyone. So, cool. So I definitely want to close out. I really been, enjoying this conversation, and
Me too.
know that, everyone can take, something from it. So I like to close out the show by asking my guests, how do you personally thrive? Right. So, a lot of different things we have, affirmations, or we have some sort of, interesting, curious routines. But what do you do in addition? We've talked a lot about, different aspects of, how do I make, a more fulfilling life? How do I make, certain routines sustainable? But how does Sid personally thrive? Right. And then my second part to the question is, what would your, 3 go-to tips, for people to take away to kind of get started, on that path, kind of like what you're talking about that happy, manifesto for themselves? Yeah.
Personally, I'm a pretty busy guy. I direct an ultramarathon, and I run a wellness center at the Stanford Inn, and I'm raising a family with my wife and doing all these kinds of things. So I have trained myself via my small steps approach to steal moments. I call it stealing moments. And this will bleed into one of my 3 tips. But anyways, I practice what I preach. And this is the weirdest thing. Like, I'm a musician. I have been a musician for years. I was playing full time in LA, but my life has changed. I have a different job now, and I have the family, the kids I didn't have before. So I still apply my small steps approach, which is I have a step on my list, which is that I pick up my guitar once a week, and I used to do it full time. Okay. So it's like, okay, I can be like, well, I used to do it full time, so I should be able to play every day for hours. No, because my life is different right now. And if it really made that much of a difference, I would spend less time with my child, with my children, my family, but I have to sort of look at it and say, okay, what can I do? So I apply my own small steps approach to my life. I eat well most of the time. I dabble in some hormetic stress, like I do daily cold therapy. I did the Wim Hof program about 3.5 years ago. I do daily breathing. I'm now a certified Oxygen Advantage breathing instructor. So I'm doing not only the Wim Hof breathing, but I'm doing this Oxygen Advantage breathing to and from the resort in the car on the way down. I'm practicing these things when I can, where I can, to keep myself and my stress as managed as much as possible. I'm a runner. I don't run a ton these days, but I run, 30 minutes to 45 minutes, a few days a week, little biking. So I'm always, what I try to teach people is come to your life with an ethic of self-care. And that backdrop enables you to, if you're standing in line for coffee, instead of looking at your phone, unless it's fun, but you can take some deep breaths to slow things down, calm things down. Remember who you are. Remember the life you want to live. Those moments matter. And I will argue that forever. I will argue that 1 minute of conscious thought matters. And it makes you change the way that you walk into work that day, and learning how to find those moments throughout the day matter. And so it's that to me is the stealing moments is maybe one of the more powerful things. That and my most of the time I call it MOT, where getting rid of militancy, getting rid of this idea that you have to do something perfect. We're not robots. We're human beings. We're flawed. We make mistakes. When we acknowledge that, to be a perfect human means you're going to be making mistakes, because that's what we are by design. So it takes a little bit of pressure off when you screw up a given day or whatever. So the 3 tips I would say would be, first of all, know who you are. Take that time to ask that question. It's a hard question, but you have to sort of shut off from how you've been living. Who am I really? Number 1. Number 2, do what you can. And look, it's easier said than done. That's why I have a job. It's small steps, but do what you can to manage your stress around it. Fight as much as you can for the life you want to live without burning yourself out in the process. And 3, learn how to value and find moments. Learn how, it's a little bit of leap of faith, but 5 minutes does matter. If you think you can go to 10 hours of work and get 10 hours of recovery time, ain't going to happen. But if within that work you have a lunch and you take 5 minutes to walk around outside and take some deep breaths, and then you still sit down for your lunch, that matters over time. Those moments matter. And if the more you can manage your stress, the more you can live the life you want to live.
Awesome. Yeah, I really love it. The small steps approach, what I took away from it was, just doing a little bit, wherever you can, right? Not being militant. Life, is really not black and white. And if you don't know, it's okay to say you don't know, what I'm saying? And, we're just, I think our current moment in life right now is that, we're all figuring this out as we go, so no one really has it, perfect, but you have to, focus on the progress over perfection. And so I really appreciate, your time being here. For those that are interested in learning more about you, where can they go?
Well, and again, I'm not advocating this, but I quit all social media in 2018 as a practice of being a coach and seeing what that would be like. So the best way to go would be to go to sidgarzahillman.com or smallsteppers.com or smallstepintensive.com. And then the resort where I work is stanfordinn.com. So those are the 4 places to find me. I have a YouTube channel. I have a podcast, What Sid Thinks. Coincidentally, what you just said, my most recent episode was called The Power of Not Knowing. Isn't that cool? So you totally nailed that down. We're in the same we're in the same zone. Not just because we're bold. We're just in the same we're in the same zone. And so that's how they can find me.
Awesome. Yeah. So we'll definitely, put that in the show notes when the episode is released. Cool. Sid, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. I know the audience is going to take, something out of this as much as I have. And I really appreciate you, showing up in the world, showing up for yourself, your family, and all the different, people and clients that you've helped over the years. So thank you for doing what you do.
Colin, it's been great. Super fun. And back at you. Thank you for doing what you do. And more of us are doing it, the better, right?
Yeah, of course. It's collaboration over competition. So,
absolutely.
Many people out in the world that help. So, guys, thank you so much for watching and listening to this episode of Thrive Bites Podcast. And please find us on another one. And please say goodbye to Sid.
Hey guys, that was another episode of Thrive Bites. If you like that episode, please subscribe and follow for new episodes. And don't forget to rate us on Apple Podcasts.